topic that we're talking about today. You might have tuned in for the last one where I was talking about how I made some panos. I know there's some good stuff like that. So I just wanted to whet your appetite. There's a couple of images in here that I didn't show for the last one because it was strictly about Milky Way. But all of these were shot with NOVOFLEX Pano gear. Specifically, I was using the VR System Slim. But what Martin and I wanted to talk about today, what Martin's going to show with us, is like there's more than one option from NOVOFLEX, of course, for shooting panos. And just because his advice turned out to be just right for me, for when it comes to what I should use, it doesn't mean it's going to be the right gear for you. So that's what this follow-up talk is about. So
it always depends on what camera one is using, what camera, and especially what lens one is using.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
So I think that's probably a good place to jump in, right?
Exactly. Let's show a presentation. Let's talk about panorama photography. I think we should speak about some basics first before we jump right into the actual gear talk. I hope that's okay with all of you. So panorama photography, what actually is panorama photography? Or let us speak about the stitching principle first. So what we do in panorama photography is basically we mount our camera on top of a panning base or on top of one of the many NOVOFLEX panoramic heads. And we basically rotate the camera and around a certain angle, depending on the focal length you're going to use. And we rotate the camera for a certain angle and take a picture after each rotation. And later in post, we stitch these individual images together to form a new image with a very big field of view. In this example, we were using a camera with a very low resolution sensor of 12.8 megapixels each. And we took, let me count it, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 images. And what we got as a result was this image with a 120-degree field of view and a 65 megapixel resolution. That's actually a very cool side effect of panorama photography, that the resolution of the individual images of your final panorama is composed of will add up and create an image with an enormous resolution and an enormous pixel count. Is that something that was that you could use during your trip, Matt? The
enormous pixel count
resolution.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's remarkable. Like I choose this 24 megapixel camera for its qualities in being able to handle high ISO noise. When you go above that resolution, the current crop of cameras, the high ISO performance decreases. And it's really important to me. I shoot at 6400 and 12,800 all the time. So for me, my purpose is I can take a 24 megapixel camera and make it a 60 or 80 or 100 megapixel camera by shooting panos and mosaics.
Exactly. So throughout the slide presentation, I will show you another example a little while later, showing the advantages of these enormous resolution.
Yes.
Okay, here's another cool example, an image of the arena in Munich, where the Olympics took place back in 1972.
That's amazing.
So here's a little bit about the techniques. Well, usually we're speaking about the so-called nodal point. Sometimes we're calling all the individual heads nodal point adapters. In Germany, we call them nodal point adapter, which is quite similar. And this slide explains what the nodal point actually is. It's basically the entrance pupil. That's the correct technical term. The entrance pupil is the virtual image of the aperture or diaphragm as seen from the object side. And each and every pano head or nodal point adapter needs to be adjusted for this entrance pupil in order to be able to use it correct. Matt, would you say this is something quite complex or complicated, adjusting your lens for the nodal point, or not?
It's not. It's only complicated to explain it.
Okay, we've prepared a little video to show the actual parallax effect and the why we need to adjust pano head for the nodal point. Should we start this video right now?
So in this video, it's you're going to look where the two trees that are coming into view right now are. There's a forward tree and a back tree, and you see how the forward tree, the one closest to us, moves in relation to the back tree? Mm-hmm. That is parallax. That it means that it's not adjusted. The nodal point or the entrance pupil has not been compensated for. But now you see the camera's moving backwards. And then when you pan left and right, the tree does not move in relation to the other one. And now you're all set. It's that easy. Sometimes it's hard to demonstrate how you can see how easy this is. It takes somebody showing you the first time to say, what am I looking for, to be able to spot that moment where you just put something closer to you and have that overlap something further away from you. And if they move when you're panning back and forth, you haven't corrected for it. Done.
I mean, if you do it the first time, it's easier as to learn to drive a car. Definitely, that's for sure.
Right. So Brenda says, so do you have to have two things that are in the foreground and background? And then for that lens, it's always the same. As long as you have one thing that's closer and one thing that's further, then you can see the difference between them. I like to put it like 3-4 feet away from me. It doesn't have to be that close to you, but I use really wide lenses all the time, and I often focus that close. So for my purposes, I do that. But once you've measured that nodal adjustment and you note it on the gear that you use, you never need to measure it again.
And the next question, no, for the same length, it's always the same if it is a fixed focal length, but if you're using zoom lenses, you have to do the nodal point adjustment for each focal length you plan to use later for shooting panoramics.
Yep.
Okay, here's another example that shows parallax, the parallax shift. If you're not rotating, that is actually a very good setup for adjusting a pano head before you start heading out, taking pictures. It's basically it's a door in the background and a lamp in the foreground. And what we can see here in these two images is a still maladjusted pano head, because if we rotate the lamp and the door in the background, they just move away from each other if we rotate the pano head.
So Brenda said you can do this in your office before you go out shooting, right?
Absolutely. And you definitely should do this in your office or at home to make sure that you create accurate results. You definitely shouldn't do this on the scene or on the set before start to take images, because this setup here with the lamp and the door is something that you can replicate at your own home or office the best.
Right.
You're not always finding two vertical lines that are in the exact distance to each other, right?
Yeah, totally. And I did it in my hotel room in Joshua Tree. That's where I took my pictures and my notes. There was two vertical lines there. There was the edge of a wall, and then there was the door handle leading out of my hotel room. That's what I used.
You see, it's that easy. And it's always good to spend a little more time and do it right, do it correct, do it exact, than make it fast and create errors, which will eventually result in images that aren't overlapping correct, or would show stitching errors in the software.
No stitching errors.
No stitching errors. Exactly.
We don't want them. Yeah.
Right. Here are some stitching errors, the ones that I was just speaking about. So the adjustment for the pano head in the left image was definitely not done properly, or there was virtually no adjustment at all. And in the right image, the adjustment was perfect. You see there's no stitching errors, no parallax errors at all. So
I recognize that image.
Let's jump right into the gear talk. That's an image from you. We presented this image in one of our past webinars, didn't we? When you spoke about single row
Yep.
panoramic images.
Yep. I was using
Didn't you take this quite
using
close to your house, right?
Yeah. This is a 5-minute walk from my house. Yeah, I was using a long lens, and I used a long plate to offset my 70 to 200 lens to find the nodal point, and just a leveling head and a balancing head too. So yeah.
Okay, this is a single row image that I took maybe 11 or 12 years back in Joshua Tree National Park. And Matt, you've been at the exact same spot a couple of weeks back. That's Keith's view.
Yep.
And it's a view right to San Andreas Fault. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's overlooking one of the potentially most dangerous spots in America, where our continent can split. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's the only fault line on the American continent that's not underwater, right?
I'd have to look that up, but it smells right.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Single row panorama photography. What panoramic heads can NOVOFLEX offer? What panoramic heads do we have in our assortment? Let's start with the easiest, with the simplest, with the smallest system in our assortment. That's the Weir System Mini. So if you're shooting a very small compact camera, a point and shoot camera, or if you're shooting a small mirrorless camera like the Sony Alpha 6400 that's sitting right in front of me, taking that image of me, or even a Fuji APS-C size camera, that's a perfect start into panorama photography. The system is basically composed of 3 different components, and I will show them to you in detail. Let me switch my camera. Switch to cameras. So the system is composed of 3 different components. That's the panning base with built-in click stops, has a laser engraved scaling on the bottom. And we can switch the click stops using the blue lever here. So we can switch from 0, which makes the panning base run without any click stops, from 0 to 16, 30, 36, and 48. And that's not degrees, that's actually images for a full circle. So 48 images equals 7.5 degrees for each click stop. So 30, 36, and 30 are the other click stops we can use. There's a built-in spirit level here. And of course, on top, the panning base is fully Arca compatible. Then we have this little rail here that's Arca compatible, has an Arca compatible dovetail here on both sides, and the Arca compatible clamping on top, and of course a small L bracket. So that's how easy you can compare the system. And now you can start adjusting your lens for the nodal point.
Wow, that pack's really small.
Of course. I mean, you can leave the L bracket on your camera each and every time. And what you can also do is use the panning base or the rotator as a quick release unit in itself. You can just lock the rotation, then it's a standard Arca compatible quick release unit. So that's how easy it is, and all you have to carry in addition is this small rail here.
That's fantastic. Wow. So that one right there, I like that one. I like that solution a lot, because you're basically adding one rail to what you have.
Exactly. That's all you have to do. And Matt, I know you're not using the NOVOFLEX L bracket. which is okay. You're using a camera specific L bracket.
Yeah.
So it's but also your L bracket is Accu compatible as well. So it can be integrated into that system quite easily.
Yep. So I have a question about that one. Just
Sure.
I'm sure it's going to be asked.
Please do.
Can you get that rail with the mini? Can you get that separately, or can you get two pieces and combine them together to create that?
I mean, if you already own like a panning base, or if you already own, let's say, that particular rail with the sliding coupling unit on top, you can, of course, buy the individual parts separately, of course.
Okay, great.
You can build up the system. And what's also cool, if you purchase this system and later on you decide that you want to do multi-row panoramic images, you just add the two missing parts, which is an L bracket and a second rotator, and make this become a multi-row system.
Right. That's awesome.
So that's building blocks.
Right.
It's a building block system.
That's what I love about NOVOFLEX specifically, is that you can get a kit, but the kit is generally comprised of things that you could have purchased separately and put together yourself. So the kits are mostly a convenience. Yeah. Mostly. In the Pano kits, we're getting to specialized area. So let's move on to the next one.
Okay, let's move on. So if you're not shooting a mirrorless camera, if you're more into like DSLR cameras or the heavy stuff, we have a second panoramic head for single row panoramic photography. That's the VR System 3, and that is also composed of 3 individual parts. And I can show it to you in more detail by switching cameras. Oops. Yep. That's the system here. The only difference compared to the VR System Mini is this rail here. It's not that compact, lightweight rail anymore, but rather it's a focusing rail, the Castel Q. And what's quite interesting, if you're not only shooting panorama photography, but you're also an avid macro photography shooter, you can also use this focusing rail in macro photography or stacking photography. So that's the VR System 3. It's a very robust system. The L bracket is a little bigger compared to the VR System Mini to accommodate the larger camera bodies, which you usually find in DSLR systems. But anything else is quite similar. We have a panning base with the exact same click stops that we have found in the VR System Mini. We have a rail to adjust for the nodal point, and we have an L bracket. So that's the VR System 3. So VR System 3 is not only pano photography, but it's also macro photography. I think that's something we should definitely keep in mind.
Right, because you have a focusing rail there too.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Okay, we just briefly touched multi-row pano photography. Let's jump right over to multi-row pano photography. And here's a very nice example. Most people, when they hear the term multi-row pano photography, they instantly think of like spherical panoramas. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
Yes and no. I mean, it's funny. A lot of multi-row panos that I've seen, because I do the astro landscape stuff, are generally for Milky Way stuff. So I sometimes think of that, but I've been personally tuned to think of panos as being just part of breathing. Like it's
part of breathing. Okay.
Breathing. It's like breathing, because to shoot a whole Milky Way arc, you have to master it. So
you simply think of them of increasing like the field of view of your
absolutely
wide angle lens even more.
Yep.
Okay, so that's basically what multi-row panoramic photography is. Here's a good example in this slide. We have a row of, let's count this, 2, 4, 6, 8. So we have 24 images, and we have just increased the field of view of the wide angle lens the photographer was using here. That's an image that was taken in Munich on one of our Pano workshops. Here's another example where you can employ multi-row Pano photography if you're into architecture photography and you don't want to invest in a very expensive tilt shift lens. You can also employ multi-row Pano photography and architecture photography by just taking several rows of an image. And if you combine them in the stitching software and add a little Photoshop later, you can just compensate for converging lines. So that's a very nice example of multi-row Pano photography. Of course, spherical Pano photography is also something that is also a type of Pano photography that you can create with multi-row Pano heads. And here's another nice example of adding resolution. That's an image that I took like 11 years back of it's an organ in a church in northern Germany, and we just briefly touched the topic of increasing the resolution in multi-row Pano photography. This image was comprised of 60 individual images. I think back then I was using a camera having a resolution of 12 megapixels, so you can do the math yourself, subtracting the overlap of the individual images. But I just gave you two examples to show how awesome how great the resolution and detail in this image was. And I once printed this image 10 feet high. So it was, and there's still enough resolution in there to make even bigger printouts. Hey, Matt, do you sometimes print your photos?
Yeah, for sure. But I typically send those out for printing. So
you send those, so you don't have a printer in your studio?
Oh, I do, but it's an ink hog. So lately I've been sending my stuff out to my service instead.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And here's another part of multi-row Pano photography. That's Gigapixel panoramics. This particular image here was shot using 259 images at 200 millimeter focal length. So you could imagine that you need a very powerful PC or computer to completely stitch this this image.
Wow.
And if you add like HDR to the individual images, if you do indoor photography, you need an even more powerful PC.
Wow.
Okay. Speaking of the Pano heads we offer for multi-row Pano photography, that's the head that Matt was using on his trip to Joshua Tree, the VR System Slim. And it's a very compact head. And as we did with the single row Pano heads, we have to ask ourselves, what camera am I using? Is it a very lightweight mirrorless camera, or is it a heavy DSLR camera? So we basically have split the systems apart. So mirrorless cameras can be used with the VR System Slim because it's a very compact, very lightweight system, and you can break it apart into components. But I can show it in more detail by switching the cameras. So that's the VR System Slim. That's how it will be shipped to you if you order it. So it's very compact. That's how you can place it in your camera bag, how you can store it in your camera bag. And if you open this quick release unit here, that's how we assemble it. Just take it off the lower rail and just screw it in here. Open the upper arm, and now you're ready to take multi-row images with your mirrorless camera, your APS-C size camera, your mirrorless full-frame camera. On the bottom rotator, we have these same click stops We have 0, 16, 30, 36, and 48. So that makes for very quick and very fast shooting, and the click stops make sure that the overlap between the individual images is always the same to aid you in post-processing and stitching your images. So that is the VR System Slim. Very compact, very lightweight. Anything you want to add? Because you were working with this system for like 2 weeks.
I fell totally in love. I was just typing out some answers to Richard, and I guess we'll answer him publicly too. But this became the standard tripod head on my Trio Pod M. I didn't put a ball head on it for the whole trip because this was just what I put up, and it was so easy to set up and so easy to use. I just became so fluid in using it that, like Richard just asked, can you do single row panos with this? Absolutely.
Absolutely. So every multi-row pano head can do single row images as well.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And because I have L brackets permanently mounted on my cameras, it totally worked out fine. But when I had to use my 780-200, where the plate is going the other direction, you can turn the mini quick release system there to the side, and then you can mount your plate that goes in the other direction. It's extremely versatile.
And I saw you were doing like panos where your camera was mounted not like vertically, but you were doing images in landscape mode.
Yes.
In combination with the VR System Slim.
Yeah, I was making vertoramas where the camera was horizontal. That's another reason to turn the quick release plate to the side. So Martin will show you that right now.
So yeah, you just unscrew this blue screw here, and then it lets you rotate the slidable quick release mount to either direction.
Yep, and it pops into place so that you're always perpendicular. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
Yep. So that allowed me to do vertoramas using the part that you'd normally switch to do multi-rows. I just used that in vertical, but the camera was horizontal instead.
I still like the term vertorama.
I didn't make it up. I heard it from somebody else, and I realized it's been used for decades. So like it's been around, but it's a great word, right?
Vertorama. I love it. Okay, so if you're a DSLR shooter, you should definitely look up for our VR System Pro 2. Or let's put it this way: if you're a DSLR shooter, you should ask yourself a third question. Am I using longer focal lengths, let's say 50 millimeter and upwards? Or am I be shooting with super wide angle lenses or with fisheye lenses? Because there's actually two different systems for DSLR shooters. So you should always ask yourself the question, what lens am I going to use for the final panoramic image? So if I'm using longer focal length lenses, 50 millimeter and upwards, you should definitely take a look at our VR System Pro 2. And yet again, I will show it to you in more detail by switching cameras. And this pano head, the VR System Pro 2, is comprised of 4 different parts. We have the lower panning base, the Panorama Q Pro 2. That's a massive part compared to the other panning bases that we're using with the single row pano heads. This panning base offers 8 different click stops. So we have 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, 30, 48, and 72 images. So 72 images equals an image at 5 degrees each. And so you can do the math yourself. So you always have to divide 360 degrees by the number that's engraved on this blue rotating knob here. And then you will get the exact angle that you will rotate the camera from image to image. So then we have this big L bracket here, the QPL VR Pro, and the upper rotator, the upper panning base. This will accept this blue rail here. That's the rail where you mount your camera onto. It slides into the Arca mount. Just rotate it to the side. Add the L bracket to the lower panning base. And that's the VR Pro 2. It's capable of carrying even heaviest DSLR cameras all the way up to, let's say, a Canon EOS 1DS or a Nikon D6, if you wish.
That's pretty heavy duty. Wow.
That's definitely heavy duty. And as I said, we have two different systems. We have split it up depending on the focal lengths you want to use. If you already know that you will be shooting with super wide angle lenses or fisheye lenses, we have the VR System 6.8. And the only difference between the Pro 2 and the 6.8 is the lower panning base. Let me show you how easy this is. So if we switch this big guy here for the Panorama Q6.8, and we have the VR System 6.8.
Got it.
The lower panning base here for the super wide angle fisheye lenses only offers 4 click stops, and it's quite narrow to aid you in doing the nadir shot. That's the shot close to the ground. So this will definitely help in post-processing the image and removing the tripod and everything afterwards.
Got it.
And,
can you put those two bases side by side so people can see the size
Absolutely.
difference?
Absolutely. Let me put this out away. Let me just explain the click stops. We have 6, 8, 10, and 12. So these are the click stops for the wide angle and fisheye lenses. And here we have a side-by-side difference.
Big difference between the two.
Exactly. That's 80 millimeters in diameter, the big one, and here it's 60 millimeters in diameter. Okay. Oops. Okay, so that's basically the NOVOFLEX Pano heads.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a quick summary. We had the VR System Mini, we had the VR System 3 for single row pano photography, and we have the VR System Slim, the VR Pro 2, and the VR System 6.8 for multi-row pano photography. And I want to stress that the two systems for single row pano photography can be upgraded later if you later on decide that you want to do multi-row pano photography as well. It's quite easy by just adding a second L bracket and a second rotating base, and then you can just upgrade to multi-row pano photography.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the beginning we spoke about the parallax effect. So if you're only doing a landscape pano photography where where there are no objects in the foreground, you don't need a pano head. Basically,
right.
All you would have to purchase is one of these rotating bases, or as you can see here in the image, it's a Fuji X Pro 1 on an L bracket on one of our rotators, and for this image here, there are no objects in the foreground, so there's no parallax effect to observe. So it's quite easy. Just level your panning base and start taking images. So let's speak about the individual panning bases real quick. We just introduced them with our pano heads. We have a whole pano base family basically. The one here is the Panorama 48. That's a panning base with built-in click stops. That's also part of the VR System Slim. It does not have an Arca compatible quick release unit on top, but rather a 1/4" 20 thread. So you can use your existing quick release unit and screw it on top of this. And if you don't need built-in click stops, there is the Panorama 2. That's the base. That's the base here. Let me just mark this for you. Hey Matt, where can we just?
I turned it on.
You turned it on?
Yep.
I don't see the controls.
Really?
They're not here. No,
Oh.
they're not here. Okay, so the second base on the bottom is the Panorama 2. No built-in click stops. Yep, that's it. No built-in click stops. No Akka-compatible quick release unit on top. Just a 1/4" 20 thread on top. And on the bottom, we have 1/4" 20 and 3/8 16 for all of our base units. So the panning base here in the left is the Panorama Q48. It has 4 built-in click stops, 16, 30, 36, and 48. And it comes, nope, that's the one on the left. And
that one?
And an Akka-compatible, yep, that's it. And an Akka-compatible quick release unit on top. And the one on the right, in comparison, is the Panorama Q68. The only difference is the built-in click stops. Here we have 6, 8, 10, and 12 images. And the big boy on top is the Panorama Q Pro 2 with 8 built-in click stops and, of course, Akka-compatible quick release unit on top. And 3/8" 16 and 1/4" 20 on the bottom. Here in more detail. And by the way, each pano head and each panning base comes with tables in the user manual, which explains the click stops, which shows you the panning angle and which click stops you should be using for which focal lengths and for which sensor size. I know, Matt, you were using these tables or you were adding them to the notes on your iPhone.
Oh, without a doubt.
Handy, while you're shooting.
Yes, absolutely. I grabbed the ones from the VR System Slim manual. I could have also used this, but I wasn't really using those focal lengths. So
yeah, so the tables differ depending on the system you purchase in the end. So you won't see the same table in each and every user manual.
Right.
Okay. Let's come to the end and speak about leveling your pano head, leveling your panning plate. Of course, you can use a ball head underneath your pano head, your panning plate that's strong enough to support the entire setup on top, and that can also cope with the additional leverage on top. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to use, or if you don't own a ball head or a 3-way pan and tilt head, you definitely should consider investing into one of our leveling base units. There's 2 different sizes. There's the Magic Balance 20. That's the perfect fit for the smaller panning plate because it has the 60 millimeter diameter. So it's the perfect fit, and it has a 20-degree how do you say?
Tilt.
20-degree tilt in any direction.
Angle adjustment. Yeah.
20-degree adjustment in any direction. And if you're working with the VR Pro 2, the big boy, you should definitely check out the Magic Balance Pro 75. That's the Magic Balance leveling base that usually comes with our Pro 75 tripod, but it can also be used separately. Matt, you were using the Magic Balance 20 throughout your trip, right?
And the Pro 75. The MBAL 20 I put on my TrioPod M.
So you were using both.
Yeah,
awesome.
And the Pro 75 is almost permanently mounted on my tripod, except for when I put the geared center column in for when I do Art Ray Pro work. So yeah, the MBAL 20 was so useful to drop on top of the TrioPod M. It fit perfectly. It really didn't add that much weight to it. And when I put the VR System Slim directly on top of the Unbound 20, it was just, I was done. I didn't need anything else. Just add the camera.
Just add the camera, level it, use the spirit level,
Yep,
and start shooting.
Yep.
So, and as you can see, there's just one locking lever on the side. That's all you got. That's all the controls.
Yep.
1/4 inch 20, 3/8 inch 16 thread on top and the bottom. So
yeah, I just want to point out, in case you all don't understand, this right here on both of them unscrews, and you can flip it around as a 3/8. So it's included. You don't have to use a bushing. It's a really elegant solution you'll find on most NOVOFLEX items.
Okay, here's a quick summary. That's the 3 questions you should ask yourself before deciding which pano head you want to purchase, or in which pano head you want to invest into. What camera do I want to use, mirrorless or DSLR? What lenses do I want to work with? And what panoramic images do I want to create? And that overview pretty much breaks it down into the 5 pano heads that I was just showing you. So it's the VR System Mini and Slim for mirrorless shooters. And if you're in the DSLR range, you should definitely check out the VR System 3, the Pro 2, and the 6.8.
This is a great slide. This helps me understand this a lot better. I'm excited. I'm excited. I say this every time, but like you guys make things that make my life easier. So there's one.
Glad you like our products.
Oh, I'm in love. What can I say? I sound like such a fanboy, but I am. So.
Well, you are. You have to admit that.
Yeah. So we have a couple of good questions.
Sure.
And I think this is a great slide to hold on while we answer some of those questions, because everything's there. I'm going to start with Stefan's question, which is there a difference between the VR System Pro 2 and Pro 2 HD?
Well, there is a difference. Actually, the HD is a brand new system. The only difference is the upper rotating base. The upper rotating base, it does not have built-in click stops. And it has a different locking mechanism built in. And it can hold much more weight compared to the standard VR System Pro 2.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I was going to type that answer too, but it's recorded. So Richard asks, can I put the upper arm on the rotating base? I believe Richard was looking at the VR System Slim at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So can you take the upper arm on the and put it on the rotating base from the VR System Slim?
The upper arm of the VR System Slim can't be removed. It's integrated into the entire bracket, so it can't be removed, and you can't add it to another system. I can actually show this to you.
Sure.
So we have it here. So the upper arm. The upper arm is integrated.
Right.
Can't be removed. What you can remove, if you want to break it down, if you want to travel with it, you just open the screw here. And you can then combine these 2 pieces to make it more compact and make it fit into your camera backpack or camera bag or whatever.
Gotcha.
Maybe he was referring to this.
Gotcha. Gino asks, which system is for both setups? Meaning single row and multi-row.
Single row and multi-row?
Yeah.
So all the multi-row heads here, the VR System Slim, the Pro 2, and the 6.8, can be used for single row and multi-row simultaneously.
So anything that says multi-row
can be used for single row as well.
Perfect. I'm not sure what Gino was asking about. So I think it's in the pictures here, but is a bubble level included in all of the kits?
Yep, there's a bubble level included in all of the kits. A bubble level that slides right into the hot shoe of your camera. And also each of our lower panning bases comes with a built-in bubble level as well.
Okay. So back when we were still talking about nodal adjustments, Brenda asked, you can do this with can you do this with a rack or with a long plate? What are your options for making sure you can make your nodal adjustment?
With the single row systems, namely the VR System Mini and the VR System 3, you would either do it with just the rail by just sliding the rail through the quick release unit of the panning base. And with the VR System 3, you would do it with the focusing rack, the Kessel Q.
Got it.
And with the multi-row heads, you would do it by sliding the blue clamping plate underneath the camera through the quick release unit of the upper rotator.
Okay. Brenda, if that answers your question, great. If not, let us know by asking a further question in the Q&A. Ruben asked an interesting, challenging question. Why do I need a system like NOVOFLEX when in reality panoramas have been done well throughout history without NOVOFLEX?
Without NOVOFLEX?
Yes, an honest question.
Okay. That is a very, very good question.
I can take first crack at it if you want.
Panos throughout history. What panos throughout histories are you referring to?
I have my answer. My answer is that.
Please go ahead.
For my purposes, which I explained in the last webinar, I need to go back to the same place and start another row that is the same thing, and I need to show up at the same place and end at the same place every time so that my stitches are as accurate as possible. So I rely on NOVOFLEX's ability to be accurate in the start and stop points and the distance traveled in between and the distance of angle up and down so that I can perform repeatable, accurate work so that when I'm in the dark, which is most of the time, I don't have to keep turning a flashlight on and off and confusing my eyes or killing my dark vision. So my personal needs are to be able to do this without having to turn a light on. And I feel very comfortable doing that with NOVOFLEX. I can find that one setting that I need for the lens that I have and set it up and then go about performing the entire pano without having to turn a flashlight on and off all the time. When I'm doing it in the daytime, it's very much the same, except it's not about dark vision. It's about being efficient and accurate. So yeah, you could use a ball head with the markings on the bottom, or get a gimbal and run a plate through it that's longer. But for me, having this gear helps me set up and know that I'm just going to nail the pano and not be disappointed when I'm trying to stitch it. So I can approach it in a systematic manner. Does that make sense, Ruben?
It was quite a good answer. Thank you.
So like, I guess the second part to that, which you didn't really ask, is like, is it worth it? My time is worth it. I spend a lot of money and a lot of time planning to go the places that I go to make panoramas. And if I screw it up, I got to go back again, and I'm never going to have the same night conditions again where I was. So I'm really investing in my ability to produce a satisfactory or an exemplary result. And that's why I choose it.
Some shots aren't repeatable.
That's true. It's true. Yeah, I can't mess them up because I'm never going to be there at that time ever again. So good question, Ruben. And thank you for your candor in asking that.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. Richard followed up and said, so I can remove the upper part of the VR System Slim and with an L bracket building up a VR System Mini. right?
You mean adding an L bracket to the lower part of the VR System Slim?
I'm not quite sure. How he describes it. My understanding, Richard, is the VR System Slim is what it is. It's not as compatible, it's not as like switch aroundable as some of the other systems, not like component based. So
that is very much true. It's based on these three components: the lower panning base, the lower rail, and the upper arm. So I think we have to say no.
No, yeah. Yeah. If it was any of the other systems, it's a bunch of some pieces that you can get separately and assemble together. The VR System Slim is unique in this group of kits in that it's not there's two things that I can identify that you can get separately, but the rest of it is custom to this kit. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, we have good chat today. We have a lot of good questions. Very engaged. So keep in mind, we're about 30 seconds ahead of you guys. So if you have any other questions, you should submit them now because we're kind of getting towards the end here. Yeah, Gino, you left a question that said single rail panorama ? I'm not exactly sure what you were asking. So if that has not been answered, submit something again in the Q&A. That helps me understand what you'd like us to answer. So Ruben asked this question: does the macro rail have a gear or some mechanism to move the rail and camera precisely?
Of course. Let me just pick it up here. So that is the rail here. There is this plastic coast rail here on top of the rail, and that's with this blue big knob. That's how you drive the sliding block on top of the rail. Very fine, very precise, and it needs that kind of precision because we're also using this in macro photography or for focus stacking, where you need to be super precise.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. But I actually haven't used my focusing rack for that purpose yet. But I think I should try that out. Yeah.
Example of the building blocks.
Yes. So was there anything else that you wanted to add from your presentation, guys? I believe that was the last slide.
Yeah, it pretty much was. So if there's no questions concerning the plates, brackets, rails, that was pretty much it from my end.
Yeah. Richard just asked a question that Jay asked me also. Has anyone done some macro pano? Like
macro pano? Well, actually, we had a few photographers that have sent us pictures in doing macro panos. I would have to just go through our hard drive here and find them. Maybe we can just provide them to people afterwards.
Sure. So in the follow-up email, Martin will give me the URLs, and I'll put that in the follow-up email to everybody here so that we can see examples of macro focus stacked panoramas.
I will try to find them.
Yeah, well,
that's no promise. But I will certainly do this tomorrow.
I had joked about doing that while on my trip, and I tried. However, there's something that happens when you go outside. The wind blows everything around, and when you're in macro mode, it moves a lot. So yeah, I didn't achieve it. I had a lot of things to achieve, and that one I tried 3 times and had to give up because things were moving. So, and Jay added that said you could do it linearly instead of rotational. No.
Does the macro rail can be held vertically and horizontally so that the rail will not move? Asks Ruben. Well, it can. I mean, you can you can lock down the sliding block with this knob here, so it won't move at all. But please remember to unlock it.
Yeah.
When you try to move it again, because otherwise you will damage that these plastic sheets here. That's
got to be
quite
careful.
important.
Yeah, got to be careful with those. You guys are great. What an awesome crowd today. You guys are just right there with the questions. I love it. Thanks for the compliment, Joe. The t-shirt
Great.
is get away from my microphone here. Wrong way. There we go. Yeah. Yes, you know what? It's funny. It's from National Parks at Night. We had a workshop there, and I liked the shirt so much I asked for one. Normally, only people that go in the workshop get the t-shirt, but I got one because I asked for it. I have that privilege because I love the design. You know, the rest of the design is pretty beautiful.
What does it say?
So,
Trona
Pinnacles and
Alabama Hills.
Yeah. So we have this t-shirt culture at National Parks at Night that's pretty strong. We love the designs and, you know, like picking good shirts and stuff. So it's just a thing. So thank you, Joe. I think we have no more questions, and I just want to say I felt good about understanding all of the options before. You definitely gave me great advice about the VR System Slim. It's incredible for my choices, you know, the things that I do. But being able to see all of the other options that you have here and understand them clearly and cleanly gives me a great confidence that the next time I need one, I can make a different choice, because I do have some heavier rigs that might be useful for. So, and I've been considering some heavier lenses. So we'll see what happens.
Just let me know well in advance.
Yeah. Yes, I will. So, all right. Thank you to Brenda, who was here with us. Thanks to everybody who showed up. We always appreciate you being here. Your questions made it all better. We wouldn't do this if you didn't show up. You know, it's just like recording us talking to ourselves. You know, like it's much more fun because you're here and you're engaged. So we really enjoy you guys.
Interactive. That's
yeah, you guys are great. So yeah, if you have anything else that you'd like us to cover, you can put it in the chat. You can reply to the emails that come from us. Just let us know if there's something else that you'd like us to explore more, because we're developing the next few months of stuff that we're going to work on. And we're always interested in knowing what you're interested in. So please let us know. Martin, is it warm in Germany?
It is very warm. That's why I have something to drink right here, right handy, and I'm sweating a little. So I hope you didn't see it.
Nope, I didn't. But I work in a cave, obviously. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I hope that you're having a good summer. I hope the rest of you have a good summer too. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
Go out and shoot pictures, panoramics or macro, whatever you like.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody. And now, bye.